Let's see if we can't get this car through to an MoT. Enjoy. Before we get down into the video, can you check you're subscribed? If you think you are, check. If you're not, why not? Fancy supporting the channel? There's a PayPal me link scrolling at the bottom of the screen. If you want to contact me, bearing in mind there's only one of me, then Churchhouse Classics, and that's all one word, at gmail.com. Enjoy. Behold, manifold left-hand side of the engine. Nothing's ever easy, is it? So these are the studs that hold the downpipe in, and I've taken the manifold off anyway because it was blowing horrendously. Well, not horrendously actually, blowing very, very lightly, and I think we found the culprit. There's a very light blow on that gasket there. All of the bolts were loose. It's not great, is it? And also there appeared to be one of the cylinder head to exhaust manifold gaskets was missing, and I know when you undo all the bolts the gaskets just drop down, but I've not been able to find them. So we've got broken studs, sheared studs, bolts that were going into the head which are properly mashed up, properly. So I need to recut the cylinder head to be a 3/8 UNC, and the studs that go into the bottom of the, the manifold here, these are just M8s. Now that's the one I had to drill out there, and most of the thread is still in there. In fact, I'd rather hope that we'll be able to wind that straight through. Now it might need a helicoil, we'll see. Oh, it's going in quite nicely. There's enough thread left in there. Particularly throat, folks, I'm sorry. It's because I need a cup of coffee, that's why. And that is going through. Now the studs, the nuts that went onto the studs have fused to the stud. Never seen anything like it before. The nuts you should be using on a Range Rover Classic are these kind of flanged affairs with little serrations on the underside, which then will allow everything to kind of lock up. Well, not lock up, but just be nice and tidy. This is going in. It's quite a vicious cut. Right, I think we're going to come out now. Most of the crap that was in there would have dropped straight through because it's not a blind hole. Let's see what a stud looks like in that hole now. Do we need to helicoil it? I think we might need to helicoil this one. No? We'll see. Well, it's gone in straight. I might put the gripper on that and see if we can get that to go in beautifully. I cleaned this thread up already. That one goes in. They're nice. That one there has got the remains of the thread off the stud in it, so I need to drill this one out still. So we've got that, rebuilding the manifold, and then we've got the challenge of the actual bolts that came out. And we've got a little bit of everything and anything in here. Bolts, they're just UNC, fairly standard. So they're 3/8 UNC inch and an 1/8 in length. And on here they very sensibly put lock washers, completely the wrong size lock washer, but a lock washer all the same, and washers. Oh, I'm just rebuilding it. I'll rebuild it, put it back on the car, and we should find that it is a thing of beauty at that point. So the manifold itself is in reasonable order. Rearmost, foremost, that was the one I think didn't have the gasket on it. This one over here I think didn't have the gasket. That was where the worst of the blow was. Obviously I've cleaned everything up now. I just want to go over with a zip wheel and take off, because certainly on here I can see the remains of a gasket from a very long time ago. So I might just have to take a zip wheel over that just to get rid of all of the crap off there, face mask up, and I'm not going to video it because it's just a load of noise. I should use my drill gauge here to see if I can't see it's coming off. All of that loose gasket material needs to come off there. And then I need to just drill this through. So it's M8. I'll start with a 7mm drill and see where we go to from there. If I go that way up, then that should work. Like I say, no real need to video this. I'm just giving you an update on progress on where we are, so we can get this sorted out. I got that thread out. I put the drill in there and started drilling through, and the remains of what looks like a helicoil, but I think it's actually the thread off the stud came out. So that was certainly in there, wasn't it? Explains why I had a problem with it snapping. Now, I popped in 3 new studs. This one, which is the one I had to drill out, it's tight, but it's just gone in a bit too far. And I think that realistically, rather than making a mess of it, because it's not so tight as it doesn't just fall out. And I suspect what will then happen is once everything's back on again, it just won't fit properly. So I'm going to helicoil it. I think someone's been in here before, because I drilled that central and the hole is definitely oval, and the thread doesn't start until, I would say, 2/3 of the way in. We can drop that in. So that's how much is going in before I get to the thread. So I helicoil this top end. And I'm going to get a coffee because I'm fed up with my pissing throat. Well, I found the 4th downpipe gasket, and that was definitely blown. I can't guarantee it's what come off the car because it was underneath the steering box down there, and it's only when I was rerouting the earth cable up here that I found it. I thought, that's interesting. Now, the manifold's gone back on again. Strictly speaking, it could have done with a helicoil here. A longer bolt has sufficed, and it's done up to the 15 foot-pounds necessary here. So I'm rather hoping now, with new gaskets, and these are the P38 style, with new gaskets, with decent bolts, decent threads, etc, 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 this thing is not going to blow. Right, I'm going to carry on putting this back together again, but thought I'd let you know, because I know you've been worried, that yes, I found the last of the gaskets, and I think you'll agree, that was blowing. Oh, this is one of those weird things. If you believe, excuse me, if you believe that everything happens for a reason, then kind of, even if you don't, you start to question it. So I can't get the base idle speed set on this engine right. It just is absolutely impossible. I can wind the base idle adjustment screw right the way in, and it still misbehaves. So I'm assuming now there's an air leak around the plenum. Well, that's fairly easy to get off. I just need to undo the 6 screws, drain the cooling system down a tiny bit, because I need to take the pipes off. There's no Jubilee clip on this one. No Jubilee clip on this pipe at all. I can pull that off. Let's get a screwdriver on it. There he goes. And he's off. There you go. Save that from popping off, because all you would need is the cooling system pressure just to go up very, very, very slightly. That would have popped off. Cooling system would have drained. How odd. Right, okay, well I can fix that anyway, but I'm going to continue with getting the plenum off, because I want to see what's going on. It's looking like there's some sort of issue going on down here. There's all sorts of gloop and shit all around it. I'm going to see if it's that that's blowing. I also want to look at the throttle butterfly as well. Let's see if that's root cause. Right, the plenum came off, and the pipe that did have the Jubilee clip on it, and this is quite a common fault with these, it's completely rotted through, more or less to about there, where the pipe was actually fitting on anyway. So I'm inclined to bypass this. It's supposed to warm the air up on the inlet. I think it probably works better in extremely cold environments rather than the UK temperate environment. So the trick then is to take this pipe, the bleed pipe, from the top of the rad and just plug it straight into the inlet manifold just there and bypass that particular device. I'm going to do that anyway, because I think this engine is going to get changed, or it's going to end up having a carburettor on it in the long term. Now, there's a couple of things I wanted to check on this. First and foremost, there's a lot of gloop in here, but not unusual. I wanted to find out whether the butterfly is seating properly, or whether there's problems with the spindles, which might be allowing unmetered air in. However, I think I kind of got to the root cause. So the plenum cover was sealed to the trumpet base with this very, very, very elasticy, not a automotive sealant. I don't know what it is, probably bathroom sealant. And then I thought, you know what, I'm going to take the trumpet base off as well. And you can see that that has been blowing between all the various ports. There's a lot of gloop and crap there on both sides. And also, oh, hello, my old friend, Mr. fucking Threadlock. Yeah, enormous reserves of it. So I'm going to tidy up the inlet manifold. I'm going to just double check that the trumpet base is flat. And some probably blue Hylamar, once I've cleaned the face up, blue Hylamar on there. I get the trumpet base fixed back onto the inlet manifold. And I think then we stand a better chance. So I found a couple of faults here, and that was really the seal between the trumpet cover and the trumpet base, and then also the interface between the trumpet base and the inlet manifold. And there's failures in all of those areas. You remember that absolutely horrendous knot of spaghetti wire that was around the brake pedal, brake light switch on the brake pedal? So I put the original connector back in, and brake lights didn't work. Put the fuse back in the dashboard, and the brake lights work. Does make you wonder, doesn't it? Now, that next thing I had to do, it's a bright thing in the sky that's hurting my eyes. Next thing I had to do was to sort or confirm that the towbar electrics were working. So the brake lights are working on the back of the car. Plugged the towbar electrics in, and everything was working, but a little bit intermittently, not the best, but no brake lights at all. So I took the connector, excuse the long shadows, it's a nice day today, I've got the doors open. Took the connector off the car, and all of these screws that fix the wires into the back here, all of these screws were loose. In fact, the blue wire is hanging out as well there, you can see. So I need to basically remake all these connections up and get it so that they're in good order. Still no brake lights. Now, if I use the power probe and the red wire on this, the red wire on here, on the towbar electrics, is for the brake light. If I put the power probe 12 volts to that, then the brake lights over there lit up beautifully. So, behind the right-hand rear light unit is where the connector is for the towbar electrics, and that's the towbar electric connector. If you haven't got towbar electrics on there, it will just have a little cap over the top of that. But that's standard fitment on the loom, and then when you get your Land Rover towbar electrics, it comes up with the corresponding plug, which you can use there. Just saves you having to cut and splice wires. Now, this goes to the back of the light unit, and you can see someone's been at it with the Scotch connectors. It's a bit of a shambles, really, isn't it? It really is. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to solder a wire onto that, take it back up to this joint here, because I'm getting nothing at all on the green and purple wire down here, which is that one there. And you can see someone's been on there with the Scotch connectors as well. So I'll chop it here. I'll insulate that wire because it's joined in the loom here somewhere. I couldn't tell you how far back it goes, and I'm certainly not taking wings off and so forth to find it. Solder green and purple onto there, take it back up to here, take it back down here, and run it on. So what I might just need to do is cut a little slit up here, pull the green and purple wire through, and then splice it on, I think. And wherever then we've got other evidence on here, and there's plenty of it, evidence of these little Scotch connector bastards, these little blue clipped together things that pierce the insulation. They're great ideas, they really are not. Temporary fix, yeah, but that's about it. Where I can see things like that, I shall cut it and butt splice it back together again. It's the best way, because down here where this connector sits, yeah, that's the mud guard behind the rear wheel. So You can see the amount of sand up here as well. Probably could do with a really good pressure wash through, couldn't it? But yes, there's an enormous amount of road detritus and so forth goes up into this area, which is why these connectors have got nice big rubber surrounds on them. So quite why you would do that, I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We can fix that. Now, someone's also chopped off the rubber splash guard on the back bumper here, I've just noticed. There should be a rubber sheet that goes underneath this panel here and goes up towards the rear end of the rear cross member. Cuts down a lot of the road rubbish and also the exhaust smells and so forth that might come into the car. So, I'm going to get on with some electrics work this afternoon. It's going to be fun. I've changed the accumulators, both of the accumulators. It could well be, because I'm changing them for another used old stock item, that I have got 4 dead accumulators. So I've ordered a brand spanking new P38 one, which I can or cannot fit. We'll see what happens. But what's effectively happening here, you can see the level there is right at the very top arrow. Now, the system, I last pressurised this system probably about 2 hours ago. So over that period, the pressure would have slowly eked out of the system and the reservoir level will go up, which is why you check the level when the system's pressurised, not when it's unpressurised. The problem I've got is that it does overflow. I don't think it's overflowed since the last time I did this, but now, because I'm getting fed up with wasting brake fluid, now I'm getting to the point where I really want it at just maybe a little bit below the level it's at the moment. I don't know if you can see that. Where you've got the top arrow here, the level is just above that, just above the max level, but then it's not fully pressurised. When it's fully pressurised, it goes down to just below the lower arrow. So we'll see what happens with it over the next 12 hours, i.e. tomorrow, and it's blooming cold at the moment. And it could well be that the accumulators I've popped on now have resolved the situation. The pump's laying on its side because I was thinking perhaps the accumulator being so high up was causing the problem here, which is why it's laying on its side. If it then proves to work fine, then I'll make up 2 new mounting points for the accumulator, sorry, pump and accumulator to sit on the inner wing there. Other things I've been up to: put a pair of twin high-low note horns on. They're working beautifully. And then I started looking at this bonnet catch. Now, this bonnet catch is troubling me somewhat. So here, you can see that that is torn around 3 sides. Sorry, 2 sides. It's torn there and up this edge here. And this one is on its way. Replaced the bonnet release cable. That's all functioning nicely. When you're adjusting everything up and you're adjusting the cable, it doesn't half help if you use the plunger. Oh my goodness. Pop the plunger in and then pull the cable. I'm not going to pull it now because I don't want the thing to fire up in the air and break anything or scratch any paint. But I put a bucket over the top of it, pulled the plunger, and that just popped out. So we know that that is in adjustment. And then as far as overall dryness on the interior, yeah, we're dry. So these seals are working. There's no moisture in here at all. This car's been outside for just over a week now. And it's holding tight, which is good. Get this all back together, really. Give it a damn good clean, get it back together again. I'm going to see if I can't find another steering wheel. I'll talk to the customer about that, but this thing's a bit knackered. We are lolloping towards the MoT for this particular vehicle. Now, I've got the ABS functioning. So you can see we've got a P38 pump in here, and the rest of it is Range Rover Classic. I went through so much documentation, and no one really kind of came up with the right ideas. So as you can see, I've already extended the loom, I've extended the wiring into the back. The switch is exactly the same as the Classic. You can take this off and put it on the Classic pump and it works beautifully. The pump operates the same pressure. The only visual difference with the pump is the way that it mounts. and the fact the accumulator is on the pump rather than down on the inner wing. Bear in mind this is a left-hand drive vehicle. Right-hand drive vehicle, of course, it would be over there. Now, the problem I was having was that it would charge up, take too long to charge up, but it would charge up and it would work beautifully and there would be no real problems with it. And then, overnight, this would overflow and it would all pour out all over the floor. So I swapped over accumulator on here, made no difference. Swapped out accumulator down there, made no difference. Then I thought, oh, to hell with this. I then connected up the flexi pipe here directly to the front of the modulator. Difficult to believe, but primed it. And it overflowed. Oh, you bastard. So then I thought, do you know what? I'm going to buy a new one of these. Brand spanking new from Wabco. Screwed it onto the pump and it's not had a problem since. So then my next concern was, with this pump, it has a different modulator on the P38, which then has 3 bleed screws, one of the bleed screws being for the pump. I thought, do you know what, let's just put a T-piece on top of the modulator here. So we've got a bleed screw, we've got the feed into the pump, which would originally have, feed into the modulator, which originally would have gone to the accumulator over there, which had the bleed nipple on it, and then we've got the flexi pipe, which went from the accumulator, blah, blah, blah. So, to the pump. So where we are now, we have more or less replicated the classic setup, but using a P38 pump. So with the T-piece here, and this is just a standard M10 by 1.25 threads T-piece, standard T-piece, standard bleed nipple, and then going from the correct port to here. So in effect, when you look at the classic accumulator, let's go back to the classic accumulator, which is here, and this was full of fluid. Effectively what you do is you have a rigid pipe that goes from the accumulator into that, you have a bleed nipple on it, and then you have a flexi line which goes on that one there. You can tell that because it's got the recess for the copper washer. The flexi line then goes to the pump. We've done exactly the same thing, but what we've actually got now is we've got the pump with the inbuilt accumulator. And now, from a completely depressurised system, this thing now primes in 30 seconds, which is fantastic. If it's going much over 40 seconds, there's a reasonable chance your accumulator has failed. Like I say, they're available brand spanking new, both for the P38 pump, but also for the classic pump as well. Now, had I had a classic pump, I would have just changed the accumulator for a classic accumulator and kept the classic pump. But I didn't have a classic pump. A classic modulator, but not a classic pump. You can see now here the fluid, because this is now pressurised. I've got it sat halfway between the minimum and the maximum, but then I've only just fitted this pipe work up and then re-bled it. So when it comes to the classic Range Rover process for bleeding the pump and the accumulator, it tells you to connect the bleed nipple onto the pump, turn the ignition on, wait until no bubbles come out, connect the bleed nipple onto the accumulator, turn on the ignition, wait until no bubbles come out. Well, I can do that in one process here using this bleed nipple here. Does that make sense? I'm not fucking around with it. It's gone back in exactly the same kind of route as it was before. So we're able to bleed the air out of the accumulator and the pump, and the input from the accumulator and pump goes into exactly the same port on the modulator. And other than that, the modulator is plumbed in exactly as it would have been originally. Now, the only thing I need to do is I've only got a fixed length M6 bolt here, and I need a slightly longer M6 bolt. So I've fixed the T-piece on, but the pressure reducing valve for the rear brakes is slightly wobbly there. So I've got the P-clip. I'll get a longer M6 bolt tomorrow, and then I can just undo that bolt, put the P-clip back on there, and then we're away. We're done. We are done. And then, really, MoT indicator. Put the dash back together again. It's locked. Put the dash back together again. Steering wheel on. We're there. Let's get it MOT'd. And then I'm going to run it around for a couple of days and check everything's behaving itself. Be interesting to see what it rides like with the lowered suspension, subtly lowered suspension. And I've had it outside, so it's been parked up outside for the last week. We've had some fairly biblical storms here. and it has been monumental in the downpours, and the car's bone dry inside. So I'm really pleased about that. So we don't have a leaking Range Rover. Certainly when I come in of a morning, in fact that's how much rain we've had, me swimming pool is back up to full. In fact it's drained down quite a lot. The tide mark was up here, so it does drain down slowly, but when I can't get to the front of the rapier at the moment. I'm going to do a video about the rapier, we're having fun with that, and then give it a damn good wash, tidy it up, and I'm going to see the customer in a week or so. But yes, I'm really enjoying this project. This particular one I've really enjoyed. I love the colour. I don't think the colour's even Marmite. I think people either like the colour or they're not bothered. I don't think anyone particularly hates the colour. There are some purists out there that have been moaning like hell about things like the lowered springs, but customer's car, customer's rules. I know that's out, by the way. That's out because I had to gain access to the fixings for the accumulator, the classic accumulator. So that'll go back in. Carpet under the bonnet probably could be a bit better, really, couldn't it? Might see what we can do there. I'll have a chat with the customer. I had to weld up the lug on the bonnet up there. Did that in situ, adjusted everything up, got it all back together. Throttle cable's disconnected at the moment because I was faffing around with the base idle. Customers told me not to spend any more time on that because the engine's going to come out anyway. But I suspect there is an air leak, or there's possibly an ECU problem, that the stepper valve, which rests in an open position, is not closing quickly enough once the engine's started. And because of that, I think the idle speed is far too high when you first start the engine up. Makes me want to get my Range Rover back on the road. I do. Anyway. Right, CECU day. Have a box here, which has come in from United States. So we are kind of going to put this in. The only thing that kind of the sting in the tail on this is the import duty on it, which there we are. Where are we? 104 quid paid. I'm going to peel it with HMRC, but I don't think I'm going to do myself any favours on this, purely because I sent the part out, it was restored, and then it was sent back, and there we are, the wrong way, Richard, dickhead. It was sent back, and they've charged me on the full value of the part, the shipping costs and everything. Fucking, doesn't matter what they do, they'll take with the right hand and they'll give you nothing back with the left. Now, what we've got here, so what you have to do with this particular company, link in the description below, is you send back your damaged CECU, because they need the box and they need the loom. That's all you need to send back, that bit, alright? Like my CECU, which also needs a repair. It comes back in a nicely sealed bag. I'd like to have a look to see what they've done inside, but I'm not going to void the warranty on it, so that ain't going to happen. Sorry, folks. So, as I understand it, from the description, they replace the printed circuit board in there, and they replace it with their own design, which does everything that the original did, but it doesn't have the memory function. So therefore, there's no battery in there, so therefore, it shouldn't fail. They also provide a lengthy guarantee as well, which is very nice of them. Much longer than the guys in this country provide. So, a nice cup of coffee, black, I'm afraid, because I've got my milk today. So I need to get the seat out, which is fairly straightforward. I mean, I've done a video on how to use a power probe to move the seat backwards and forwards to get it out. But let me get the seat out so that I can plug this in and we can see if it works. So the reason you need to move the seat backwards and forwards is because on the hard dash, Range Rover Classic, there's two fixings that go underneath there. On the soft dash, they're on the back of the panel there, which I guess makes life a lot easier. So the trick is to remove these two fixings at the front, roll the seat forwards, remove the two fixings at the back, lift the seat out. Does that make sense? Doesn't need to be videoed. It really doesn't. But having fun. There's never a dull moment. You remember in an episode at the beginning I had to adjust the seat because the runners were so damn tight. Well, when it's all gone back in again, the seat is rocking around on the pedestals on the floor. Put the seat on the bench, sits absolutely perfectly. Got another seat out the container. The base of the seat sits square on the floor. It is absolutely perfect. So there's something gone wrong with the pedestals on this car. I'm not going to dig into it too deeply, but I had to put a shim underneath between the seat and the pedestal on this back outer corner. And that then has got it all working absolutely beautifully. And then the next challenge I've got is that the door mirrors aren't working, and they should be working. So then I've been messing around with switches. Now, if you've got memory seat, this bit needs to have 5 terminals on it, not 6. There's one that's got 6, and you can see very conveniently it's a different colour too. So that's the one that was on the car, so it's got the right connection on there, but it is as wobbly and as sticky as a dick in a bucket. I'm sure that's a phrase. Anyway, so I've been cleaning that. It's going to go in the ultrasonic tank tomorrow morning, and then I started going through the ROM to try and understand if I can actually diagnose it using the pins on the dashboard up here. I know the mirror works because if I take the connector off here, I can use the power probe in order to activate the mirror in various different locations. Let's take the keys out. Yeah, so it's all gone together. I mean, the seat's in and it works. Looks a lot better now. I stripped the seat switch down. I got that working absolutely spot on. So I did that yonks ago. I probably should video it while I'm just sitting there at the table at home with a beer, stripping one of those down. I didn't use a beer when I stripped that one down because that's a customer one. But if someone wants to see me doing a beer and talking nonsense while I'm fixing one of those switches, they are very, very, very straightforward. There's a couple of catches and gotchas and so forth, but nothing particularly serious. Absolutely sailed through. What a beauty. Anyway, clean sheet. Emissions, CO. The pass rate maximum is 3.5% CO. It got through with 0.25. This is a non-cat 3.9 litre Rover V8. So, shows you how lean they make the fuel map on these things, doesn't it? Probably was the original cheat. I'm sure Volkswagen learned every trick they know from the 14 CUX. And then the hydrocarbons, 1200 is the maximum, and we got through 129. And yeah, so it absolutely sailed through. Well done, Green Range Rover. And then the bloody ECU packed up. Seat ECU, the one that I've just had shipped in from the USA. Started to mess around getting the mirrors to work, got them working, and then everything stopped working. Working with the supplier at the moment to resolve the fault and get it back into the car, but the net effect was I missed the collection date. Other things caused me to miss the collection date, slashing myself open, fluid bug, etc, etc, but I could have done that, or I could have done without the ECU packing up. But anyway, I shall continue in the next episode with what the ECU fix turned out to be.